Hi YouTube, it's Janelle here, and in this video you're gonna get two things from me. First, you're gonna hear about my biggest financial mistake, which is kind of like a story of like my biggest money regret that I still have to this very day. But then I'm also gonna add in the story of 6 different women telling about their biggest financial regrets as well, which came from a Fast Company article that I read recently, and I just thought it was so good because a lot of the things are similar to how I feel about money, and some of them, I didn't necessarily experience, but were just good for me to like read up on and kind of like see what other women's perspective was. Before I jump into those different things, I just first want to remind you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet subscribed, because I put out videos every single week hoping to help make money simple. People talk about, finances like if it's so complicated, budgeting, credit, investing, saving, and it's really not that complicated. It can be really simple and it can actually be fun to learn about and to talk about. And so that's why I post these videos to help break it down for you and hopefully make it seem a little bit more approachable. Okay, so I'm gonna jump right into my story because at this point in my life, I am like completely unabashed. I have no shame to kind of talk about, the mistakes that I've made and all of the things that I've learned from, going through a lot of different financial mistakes. But there's definitely one that sticks out in my mind that was probably the biggest, most hot mess mistake that I made. And it really came from the fact that I didn't really understand what any of it meant or what I was really doing. So I was probably my second year, I think I was in my second year of teaching. And this is like after I graduated college. I was probably like around 24 years old or maybe 23 or 24. And I didn't have any student loan debt because I had graduated college. Pretty much I had no student loan debt except for one $5,000 loan that I took out to go study abroad. And I was pretty much able to pay that like within a few years. But my credit card debt was actually what was really bad and was like kind of out of control. And I was only sending the minimum payments on that. But when it came to student debt, I always consider myself to be lucky that I didn't have any student loan debt. Like my friends and my family members always was talking about student loans being, this thing that's just always above their head, like making them stressed out. And one of those people in my life was a good friend of mine that she was pretty much my friend since I was a baby. Like we were in elementary school together, middle school together. We didn't go to the same high school, but we stayed in touch all through high school. We didn't go to the same college, but we used to visit each other at each other's colleges. And we ended up even living together in an apartment with another roommate at one point. And so we were very, very close, family, friends, like really close best friends. And then her little sister was enrolling at a school that was out of state because we're all from New York, and her little sister wanted to go to school that was not in New York. And because she was going to out of state college, it was a lot more expensive to pay, out of pocket. The loans weren't enough and she wasn't getting all of the scholarships or grants that was necessary to cover the whole tuition. So basically they asked me if I was willing to co-sign a loan so that she can get a student loan with Sally Mae. Not my friend, but my friend's little sister. And so at this point, it was kind of like a family thing that they were dealing with, right? My friend tried to co-sign and she couldn't because her student loans and credit cards debt was bad. Their mom tried and couldn't. Their dad tried and couldn't. A cousin of theirs tried. Like so many people in their family had tried. And at this point, they were kind of like, they didn't know what to do. She was a very promising student. I mean, this girl was saying that she was going to go to medical school and go to, pursue a medical profession. So at this point, I was kind of like, all right, I felt like it would be a good thing to do to help them. They were asking me to just co-sign. It wasn't like it was I'm taking out the loan. It was more so co-signing. You would think that at that point I would go and research what does it mean to co-sign a loan. But, 23-year-old Janelle was not that smart. 23-year-old me was just like trying to be the person to like help solve everybody's problem and to be a good friend and all that. Like I was so naive at that point, and I was still in my own financial hot mess. I wasn't very in tune with my goals, my financial goals especially. So because of that, I thought like, I don't want to be a bad friend. And I looked at their situation and I felt really bad. Like nobody in their family was going to be able to co-sign, and this girl's not going to be able to go back to college next semester if she doesn't have somebody to help her. So I went and pulled up the, co-signer application process with her. We sat down. I filled everything out step by step. And of course, it was through Sally Mae. So at the end, the Sally Mae website was like, your credit is really good. Like you got approved and you're officially the co-signer. At that point, I'm sure there was like some real fine print, like maybe like font 3. It was so small, like the letters were so small. I was like, I'm not reading all of this, but I did read, like I skimmed it. And I knew that at that point, after I had already agreed and signed and like accepted the terms and conditions, afterwards, I kind of started skimming. Like who does that? Actually, a lot of people do this. I did it. I didn't learn till later in life how important it is to read the fine print, or at least to take your time and ask the right questions. If you don't, read all the fine print, at least ask all the right questions, because that was something that I didn't realize until after I signed the agreement saying that if she cannot pay, I am 100% equally responsible as her to pay for this loan. Now, I didn't understand that before, because the way that the family explained it to me was, she's responsible for it. You're just kind of like a guarantor. Like, you're just kind of like helping her get approved. You're not the person who's responsible. It is a loan in her name. No, that's not how it works. I wish that's how it works. But when you co-sign a loan, you are equally responsible. The loan is in your name. They will pull your credit. It will be on your credit report. And if the person who you co-signed for the loan for can't make payments, you better believe they're going to be knocking on your door, calling up your cell phone, trying to get payments from you. And so you could already see where this is going. Fast forward down the line a few years, she actually didn't even end up graduating college on time. Her grades were not all that. Like, it was kind of a situation where it was very promising at first, and then later on, we, come to find out, I don't even think the degree she got was a medical degree. I'm not really sure. But basically, after the graduation, 6 months after, it was very hard for her to get a job. And so she was essentially, I think she was working at like one of the electronic stores, like Best Buy or Radio Shack or something like that. I think it was Best Buy. And basically, at that point, her paycheck was not that much money, and she couldn't find like a career path that she really wanted to commit to. So the payments started kicking in 6 months after graduation, and she couldn't make the payments. So next thing you know, my credit starts taking a hit, and I'm looking at my credit report like, wait, what is going on? Why is my credit going down? And this was probably the first big reason why I opened my eyes to why it's so important to understand your credit and like all the things that are connected to your credit. At one point, it was trying to get an apartment. That also made me realize that credit was important, but this was probably the biggest reason why I started taking my credit so seriously. It was like around 2013, 2014, where I seriously started to like monitor my Credit Karma like it was nobody's business, but I mean, it is nobody's business but mine, but like I started to monitor it so seriously. And so basically, to sum up the story, because I could talk about this all day, ended up being that I did have to step in and start making some payments. And it was very frustrating because it wasn't even my student loan. It was something that I wish I had researched. I was, very, very naively, trying to help here. And I didn't really know all the details and all of what it meant. And so basically I ended up spending some money, and it was probably a couple $1,000s, and it was very frustrating. But eventually I started to do the research, and I found out that as a co-signer, you can apply to get released. Part of it has to be that the person, the primary loan applicant, which is the person you co-sign for, they have to be the person to start the process. But, I worked with her. I was like, listen, we need to sit down. We need to look at this. You have to improve your credit score. We have to make on-time payments for 12 months consecutively. We have to never miss a payment. It can be late. All these things. If you check off all those boxes, then you qualify after 12 months to be released. So I was serious about that. Like, I was going through all of the process, making sure that we were going to get released after 12 months. And within that time frame, I actually referred her to get the loan consolidated with a lot of her other loans as well. And so basically she ended up doing that instead. She ended up taking all of the student loans that she had, including the one that I co-signed for her, and just consolidating all of it into one lump sum that she's basically paying back to the company that consolidated her student loans for her. That was just something that it was a learning process. But for me, I got really lucky that she was able to consolidate, because a lot of people don't get to consolidate if their debt to income ratio is off. Like, if the debt that you have is way high and the income you're making is way low, that doesn't make sense for any company to take on the risk of paying off all your loans for you, because how are you going to pay them back when your income is so small and your debt is so high? So that was the position she was in for a long time. And I got very lucky, and she also got very lucky that she was able to consolidate it. And at the end of the day, it was wiped off my credit. My credit score went up a lot at that point, and I didn't have to worry about it anymore. I did lose a couple $1,000s in the process and learn a lot about credit and money and friends and all that. The sad part is, like, now because of that situation, her sister, who was my original really close friend from like elementary school all the way through after college, she and I are not even really good friends anymore. So it's so sad that something like money and loans and all these things could really break up relationships that pretty much I had that relationship in my life for pretty much my whole life, right? All the way through my 20s, almost two full decades. And so it's really sad when things like that happen. That being said, that's not the only type of mistake that I've made. I have definitely made other mistakes, and a lot of them are mentioned in the article. So I'm just going to go through these top 6 because I feel like these were very helpful for me, and like just I could relate to some of them. So the first one is credit card debt. The first one talks about how the woman who says that she took on too much credit card debt didn't really understand that it's not just interest on that first year on your purchases, but every single year after that. And so you just end up owing back zillions of dollars more than you even borrowed in the first place, because that's the way credit card interest works. It just compounds, and it's such a high interest rate. It's so much higher than a car loan, a home mortgage, or a student loan. So you have to be really careful with those credit cards. And the same thing happened to me. I took on almost $20,000 of credit card debt within 4 years of college. And trying to get out of that debt took me almost 2 years of my life. And it was such a sacrifice. And it was just sending aggressive payments, taking on side hustles, tutoring on Saturdays, like all kinds of stuff just to be able to get out of that debt. So for me, number one, it definitely resonated with me. And I totally agree. Another mistake that I made was doing too much with those credit cards. Number 2 is one that I don't know if I agree with it or not, but basically she says that she regrets investing in real estate sooner in her life. Now, I'm 30 years old. I just turned 30 this year, and I have not ventured into the world of real estate investing yet. And the big reason why is because I'm from New York City, and in New York City, real estate is just so unapproachable for the average person. Like, you gotta have almost $1 million basically to even consider. Like, it's so hard. I'm sure there are areas where I could probably research and find a good deal or something like that, but it just feels so stressful to think about getting started with real estate in New York. I would probably have to go somewhere else where the real estate market is so much easier to enter, and then maybe learn like that, because New York is just so unapproachable. But basically the woman in the article says that when she invested in her house, it was about 2014 when she bought it. And just a few years later, it increased by 50%. So it was almost, it was basically worth so much more just in a few years. And if she had purchased it a few years before 2014, she probably would have got 100% return, which means the value of the house would have doubled if she had bought it a little earlier. So she's just in her specific situation saying, like, I should have bought it earlier because I would have had way more return on investment or ROI. But because I waited to purchase it, now I have to wait longer to see that return. So, I mean, I definitely understand that, but I think it's risky because, everybody's talking about a recession coming, and you never know how the housing market is going to do. And so it's kind of like, yes, it helps with cash flow, but for me, it's a very serious investment of your time, unlike the stock market. Like, for me, passive investing in the stock market is not that hard. I don't really do anything. I just put the money in every month, and I, sit tight and just wait for it to grow. Versus real estate, you have to be monitoring properties. You have to be talking to tenants, finding people that are trustworthy, and that's a lot of time. So that's kind of like, for me, why I haven't done it. I don't know if I regret that I haven't done it yet, but that's regret number 2 in the article. Regret number 3 comes from a woman who says that she did not research her higher education options. So I think she was doing nursing, and she basically went out of state for college, similar to the girl from my mistake. And basically what she realized was that she spent like almost $65,000 just in her undergrad to do nursing, when she could have just got the same license, the same certificate, and all of that in a program at a local hospital, or like through a school that was in her state, to save so much money. And so she really regrets that she didn't even really compare after her undergrad what were the options to get that nursing license or to get the RN like certification, and so she can officially become a nurse. She didn't really do all the research and compare. She just chose one that had a good name. But at the end of the day, you're going to be working in a hospital with a bunch of other nurses that all went to whatever program. It's not like you're going to get paid more because you went to a more prestigious program. So for her, it was a regret that she had, that she didn't really even compare the costs, which I can understand. Sometimes it's worth it to go to a school that has a better name. Sometimes it's not. But at the end of the day, it's always worth it to compare the costs of different colleges and different programs, especially after undergrad, when getting grants and scholarships is a little bit harder. Regret number 4 comes from a woman who said that she wishes she had done real world experiences earlier in her life. So she talks about how she spent most of her time in school, doing academic experiences, undergrad, then grad school. Maybe she did another program after that. And at the end of the day, she was doing so much school, she didn't really get a lot of real world hands-on experience in the workplace. And so she kind of wishes that she could go back and do unpaid internships, and take an internship where you're in the scene, you're in the career, you're in the office, getting experience doing the projects and the work that people in the real jobs that you want to do are actually doing every day. Because that type type of experience nowadays can be a lot more valuable than all the, masters and PhDs can be. Really obviously depends on your industry and your sector, but real world experience goes a long way no matter what industry, no matter what career you want to do. And so the earlier you can get some of that real world experience, the better. Because I also do agree with her on this. I don't have any regrets around it, but I do agree with her because I feel like when you get real world experience, not only do you learn about the job, but you also learn about people that do that job. So you get a network of people that you're connected with that are professionals, that are working in the industry. They have connects at other companies. They have people they can connect you with, versus when you're in school, your connections are other students that probably are not as well connected in the profession the way that working professionals are. So like that to me made a lot of sense. Regret number 5 was from a woman who said that she spent way too much money irresponsibly. So she didn't really have a specific example. Well, she did say some things that she spent money on, but basically she was just saying, early on in my life, I just spent money recklessly, like I wasn't saving. And I definitely relate to that because that happened to me when I was in college, and even shortly after. I was just doing a lot of spending and I didn't have any goals or a plan for my money. In this specific article, she says that she paid for her wedding with cash, and then 2-3 years later, she ended up getting divorced and she had to pay cash for the divorce too. And so all of these different things that came up in her life, she was just paying and not necessarily coming up with a plan for her financial path. Like, where do I want to be after, what are the outcome of all this spending? And am I saving just as much as I'm spending? And she wasn't at all. She was just spending money and not necessarily saving any money at all. She talked about how she was partying a lot when she was young, and a lot of cash was just going out, and not a lot was staying in. And I definitely agree with that. Like, I didn't even have a savings account for a long time, probably until I was after college. I got a savings account. I was just putting money in a checking account all the time and just using it with my debit card until I finally realized, I'm not really saving anything. And when emergency happens, I got to use credit cards or I have to borrow money because I don't have a little pile of money just there for emergencies. So I definitely agree with her. That was a mistake that I made, and I can totally relate to that. And the last regret, which is regret number 6 in the article, is straight up not investing. And this is probably to me the best one because I don't have this regret because I actually started investing very early, like when I was 24. But the reality is that I could have started investing even earlier than that. I wish I started investing when I was 18 or when I was 19. But she talks about the real detriment to not investing is at the end of the day, you can definitely invest without being wealthy, but you cannot be wealthy without investing. It's just very hard. It's very rare that you would come into a place where you're very, very wealthy when you have not been investing or you haven't invested money. It's just very rare. So she talks about how women do not invest in the stock market that much. There's a lot of women who just avoid it because they don't understand it. Men are a lot more aggressive, a lot more involved in the stock market. And so she says that she was just kind of putting it off. And, she wanted to get married. She was just focusing on dating and trying to find a good husband. All these different, her goals were just kind of not where, she would want them to be compared to how she is now. If she could go back in time, she would change them and make herself a little bit more driven financially and start putting money in the market, in the stock market, and just letting it grow over time. And that's something that I definitely understand because I tell a lot of people, if you're not investing right now and you're 30, or if you're about to be 30 and you haven't started investing, you're wasting so many opportunities. You're wasting basically every single day to be making money in the market. Every year that goes by is a year that you could have been making more, compounding returns, more gains on your money. And the money just sits there and just grows. The value of the businesses in this country always just go up and up and up, right? Technology is only going to make businesses more valuable in the future. So if you're not in the market, you're not going to be in on those profits and that growth, and your money's just going to be growing so slowly, 0.09 or something like that in a savings account. So if you really want to be getting more than 3, 4, 5%, 6%, on average 8, 9%, you got to be in the stock market. You have to be investing, in the stock market to be able to get more return on your investment. All right, that is all I have for you guys. The link to that Fast Company article is in the description box below in case you're interested in reading up on those specific women's answers to their biggest financial mistake that they made and the regrets that they have. And if you guys have a regret of your own that you want to share, please put it in the comment section below because I definitely want to know what other people have done and if they relate to the mistakes that I made, like my credit card mistakes or my co-signing mistakes. And if not, if you're younger and you haven't even done any of these things, I hope that this video helped you open your eyes and learn a couple things that you should probably avoid when you're making your money moves in life, because this is something that I never had anybody sit down and tell me, these are things that you shouldn't do. These are my regrets financially. And I think if somebody has sat me down and had that talk with me, I probably would have went through my life a little differently when it came to my credit credit cards and when it came to co-signing a loan and all of these decisions that I made, I wish that I would have had a little bit more guidance and knowledge up front. So hopefully this video can help you out with that. And if it did, take the link and send it to somebody else and help somebody else out. You can send it to them via social media. You could email it to them. You could text it to them. The point is to share this and to, I'm not the only one out here trying to be helpful. I want you to be helpful too by sending this to somebody else that you can help with this information. And then follow me on social media if you're not. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on all those places. So you can find me at MissBeHelpful. And then I'm also taking questions from people. If you have a specific issue that you want me to post a video about, you can email me at missbehelpful@gmail.com or call my Google Voice number and leave a recorded message. But that's all I have for you guys. So till next time, peace.